Today's episode is brought to you by We Break You Buy. Interested in sports cards and memorabilia? Check out We Break You Buy on TikTok. We Break You Buy is a small operation run by three brothers, offering spots for a chance at winning some incredible sports cards and memorabilia. That's We Break You Buy. Check it out today on TikTok. Edition of Why Wasn't It Better? I'm your host, Patrick Darms.
And I'm your co-host, Anton Paras here.
And visiting us once again is a veteran guest of this podcast, Peter Baldeo. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome, Pete.
Thank you.
This is like your fifth or fourth appearance at this point. I'm not quite sure.
I think so. I'm trying to tee it up for a retirement job, so let me know when you guys are hiring.
You got it.
Yeah.
What's new in your world, Pete?
Nothing exciting. Trust me, it's all finance and nerdy stuff. I don't think anyone wants to hear it.
Probably true.
Yeah, it's cool. I've accepted. That's my place in life. I have like one friend that enjoys finance. That's cool.
Anything fun and exciting that you want to plug, or something that you're excited for coming up?
I feel like you're baiting me. I'm not ready. I don't know. I'm not reading the writing on the wall. But maybe Thanksgiving.
It's okay. That's right.
Well,
yes, happy Thanksgiving.
Maybe
Technically, the listeners will be hearing this episode after Thanksgiving, but that doesn't mean you can't wish them a happy Thanksgiving anyway.
That's right.
Yes, the sentiment's still there.
I would be hoping your Thanksgiving went well. Be the correct way to say it. There we go. Hoping everyone is stuffed. I'm hoping football was good.
We hope everyone survived Black Friday.
Yeah. Remember when Black Friday used to be like a war zone? You would go out to the store. Now it's just a bunch of like rapid clicking online.
In some areas, it still is a war zone, which it confuses and befuddles me.
That doesn't really make sense. Like the whole doorbuster thing. Like, I mean, we have e-commerce now, guys. We have logistics. Pay $5 and don't die.
It's true. Amazon's a thing.
What's that?
It's a river in South America, but that's not important right now. Before we get into this week's episode, Anton, I thought we could cover some admin as usual. Thank you to all our listeners. We're getting some great, thoughtful comments on the YouTube, which is always a good thing. And
yes.
Anton, I had a listener question come in. It's made me think.
What do we got?
The question was, what else are you watching besides the film that you cover?
Okay, that's a great question.
It is.
Pat, do you want to start? What have you been tuning into lately?
Well, this is actually probably going to surprise some of the listeners, but apart from the films that we cover, I do not watch a lot. I don't watch a ton of TV, except for, a few things here and there. I think this weekend I am going to be seeing Napoleon.
Okay.
The new Ridley Scott film.
Okay.
I am really excited for it. In addition to the trailer, which is breathtaking, I just watched an interview with Ridley Scott and historian Dan Snow where they talk about the work that Scott did on the film. I really hope the movie's good because it looks fantastic. I don't know if either of you have seen the trailer yet. But
I've seen the trailer and I wanted to see it. Isn't it? Are they doing like a simultaneous release with like a streaming service too? Or am I completely making that up?
I think it's in the theaters to start, and then it'll be on Apple afterwards because it is made by Apple Films.
Got it.
Interesting. I would hope that it has a long run in theaters though, because that looks like a film that deserves. Oh yeah.
Because we've given Ridley Scott a lot of crap on this podcast. Peter, you were on for one of them for Hannibal, but when he gets movies right, he kills it.
Yeah, listen, even baseball, right? It's a batting average. One of the late greats is M. Night Shyamalan. Not all of his movies have been a hit, but you know what? He's coming off the benches, and I'm proud of him for that. I am.
Yeah, he has I would say a lower batting average than Ridley Scott, but sure.
Yeah, that's fair.
Doesn't get on base often, but
I would call him the DH.
He had a really good rookie year, and then kind of petered off. But
he's coming back now. He said the last two haven't been bad. I think he did Old and Knock at the Cabin. I don't think they were awful. I thought they were pretty entertaining.
I didn't see him. But to finish answering the question, that is the next movie that I will be seeing. I do want to see that movie Ferrari that's being released, I think, around Christmas. And then as far as streaming goes, I am looking forward to seeing the 6th and final season of The Crown, which comes to Netflix, I believe, this week. I'm looking forward to that. And Speaking of Netflix, I do want to see The Killer, the new David Fincher movie.
I heard it was good.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm hearing good things. So, Anton, what about you?
Yeah, no. So I will definitely say that I'm a bit of a picky watcher when it comes to TV series myself. I tend to actually go back to a lot of comfort series if there's not anything in particular that's taken my attention. So I actually really like to go back in and just enjoy Seinfeld, Simpsons, shows like that. They're just very easy to just go back and consume just because they're great. Mind you, very early seasons of The Simpsons. But if listeners are curious about like my taste in like TV series, I love The Sopranos, Succession, 6 Feet Under, so a lot of HBO in there. And then you can often find me catching like just watching a random episode of Star Trek every now and then, just because I love to go back. But more recently, I've really tried to get into the new season of Loki, and it's not for the fact that's not me making any criticisms at all. It's just finding the time to like even catch up on series nowadays with just such a busy schedule. Actually just sitting there and like watching it after falling behind can always be a hard task. And in terms of films, yeah, I'd love to go to the theaters, and I actually have plans to. We have a drive-in theater not too far from where my wife and I are, so we always love to see what theaters are showing at the drive-in and get that old school Americana experience. So
like, big plug.
That's something that we love to do.
Big plug for drive-ins. I grew up in North Jersey, up in Ringwood, and Ringwood, New Jersey, middle of nowhere, New Jersey, and there was a town right next to us, probably like 20, 25 minutes away, called Warwick. They always had a drive-in. We used to go to the drive-in all the time.
Yep, love the drive-ins. It's a great experience. If people, if you don't know if there's one by you, Google it. There's a lot more drive-ins than you think, and probably will go see Napoleon. I don't know about this weekend, but I will definitely be seeing that in theaters. And then because we Pat, you and I talked about this a few episodes ago. We chatted about Five Nights at Freddy's. I think I'm actually going to go see that sometime this week.
Good luck.
Did you see how much money that movie's made?
So there's a huge following.
Oh, it beat the opening weekend of Super Mario Bros. The Mario movie.
Damn.
Yeah, it's huge.
Peter, I just found out there was a game from Anton the other week when we were recording. That is how like clueless I am at this point with modern pop culture. I had never heard of it.
Oh, what? I've always seen it on like the fringes. I didn't really know what it was. Like it wasn't really my style of game. And then I started seeing, because I have Peacock, and they spam it because it's the only place to watch Barclays. So they just spam it every time it goes to commercial. It's like Five Nights at Freddy, Five Nights at Freddy. I was like, oh wow, they made it. And apparently, it's pretty good.
It's funny to think that we've already spoken about it twice. We haven't committed to doing an episode about it yet, but the film, while critically, it's not a great movie. Guess I'll tell the budget. $20 million so far. How much do we think that has the box office reached?
Domestic or worldwide?
It's worldwide.
Is it over 800 million?
Close. We got to be close to it.
No,
I would say what, 350 so far.
It's actually 251. So.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a lot. Yeah, that budget.
That's great.
Wow.
Without budget.
Return.
Without budget, that's huge.
All right. My question is, do I have to go to the theater to watch it, or can I watch it on Peacock?
You can watch it on Peacock.
You can watch it on Peacock.
Okay,
so,
I may check it out then.
I dig this simultaneous movie theater release thing, even though I love the theaters. I would love to go see. I'm going to see Saw, the new Saw. I know it's probably absolute garbage, but I've seen all 9 of them thus far, so
Wait, there's 9 of them?
Oh yeah.
What?
And I think
way too many.
Unconfirmed, right? This is just a repeated wives' tale that I've heard over the years. So I think they originally contracted the writer to write 7, but I think midway through the second one he died. So they hired some ghostwriter to finish him. That's why the first one was awesome, dude. It's the craziest movie I've ever seen. Second one was
great movie. The first,
and the third one was all right, and then the rest of them just kind of sucked after that. I think unconfirmed. I don't know if that's true. I can't factually confirm it, but I know we live in a world where we should confirm that now. Pretty sure that's the case. And then
we'll take your word for it. It's fine.
And then they just kept making them, and then they did one with Chris Rock, which was slightly above bad, but not terrible.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Chris Rock was in a Saw movie.
Pretty sure it was Chris Rock was in Jigsaw, if I'm not mistaken.
As who?
Which was it was a spin-off one, right?
It was like a detective.
It's called Jigsaw?
Yes. Is this it?
Should we make a bunch of spin-offs? I'm already thinking of possible titles. Circular Saw, Chainsaw, Buzzsaw.
Dude, I wouldn't.
We could do it. We could write it.
Wouldn't be shocked, man, if
Jigsaw.
this thing turns into like they just spin it off and it becomes like one of those like C- sci-fi cable TV series.
I think it already
Like
is.
forever. No, they're still doing theatrical releases, right? When they don't even get an
Okay,
advertisement
alright.
in theater and they're just like straight to sci-fi and you can only show it with commercials, you're like, okay. But
I legitimately did not know there was more than 3 or 4 of them because I've seen the first 2. I really liked the first one, and I enjoyed the second one, and I just kind of gave up after
if
that.
I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure there's 9, and that's why the last one is Saw X. And they just
I believe you. I mean, why not, right? Like the Halloween series, there's like 15 of those. There's 15 Friday the 13th. Like, it makes sense.
yeah, and then Halloween just ended. I think they just like had the last one, right? Is it supposedly over?
Yeah.
But listen, 15 years from now, reboot it, put it on Netflix. I'll be there.
Speaking of Halloween, Pete, we missed you on the Halloween
I know.
2
I'm
episode.
sorry.
It's
I had
okay. It
a prior
happens.
work commitment. Not really prior, but last minute work commitment.
But you
never
know what? Here we are
apologize for
today.
doing something that you get paid money for because you're not getting paid to be here.
I mean, I appreciate that. I do. But listen, you got to let the fans down. Sorry, you can't let the fans
that's
down.
true. The next set of horror movies we do, we're going to be sure to include you. I'll put some crappy M. Night Shyamalan movies on that list. I really want to do The Village.
Oh, God. I'll do it. I wouldn't want to subject another human being to that.
I've seen worse.
Yeah, that's true.
I've seen a lot worse.
We all have.
Yeah.
That's true.
After The Exorcist 2, I can pretty much tolerate anything, I think, Anton.
Oh, they made a new one too, right?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Or sorry, after Exorcist 2, not The Exorcist.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the in front of it. But you know what does have the in front of it? The film that we're covering today.
Ronin?
Blade Runner?
No. Close, though.
No. Oh, right.
It's The Last Samurai. It's the 20th anniversary. Intro this for us.
Set in 1876, Captain Nathan Algren is an American military officer hired by the Emperor of Japan to train the country's first army in the art of modern warfare. As the government attempts to eradicate the ancient samurai warrior class in preparation for more westernized and trade-friendly policies, Algren finds himself unexpectedly affected by his encounters with a samurai, which places him at the center of a struggle between 2 eras and 2 worlds. Released on December 5th, 2003 by Radar Pictures, the Bedford Falls Company, and Cruz Wagner Productions. Directed by Edward Zwick, screenplay by John Logan, Edward Zwick, and Marshall Herkovitz. Starring Tom Cruise, Ken Watanabe, Koyuki, Tony Goldwyn, Hiroyuki Sanada, Shin Koyamada, Masato Harada, Timothy Spall, and Billy Connolly. At a budget of $140 million, which is $230 million adjusted for inflation, with a box office of $456,751 million adjusted for inflation. Pat, why was this movie chosen?
We're coming up on the 20th anniversary of this film, and I have always felt the need to defend its honor. You mentioned the box office numbers. Clearly, this film was a financial success, but for my money, it is one of the most underrated, misunderstood, miscategorized films of its era. I really enjoy this movie. I haven't rewatched it a ton, really only a handful of times, but it's always been one of those films that the more I see it, the more I like it. It is very much liked by those who have seen it, but curiously, a lot of people that you talk to, when you mention it, they have the same reaction. Like, well, the action was good, but it's silly because Tom Cruise was trying to play a Japanese person. Tom Cruise was trying to be a samurai. I'm just convinced that a majority of people who claim to have seen this film either didn't actually see it or didn't understand it. I consider it one of Tom Cruise's finest performances. I think it's his most underrated movie. It's the type of role that he apparently has no interest in pursuing anymore.
It's true.
You could almost make a case that it was a risk for him to do so back in 2003. I asked Peter to be our guest on this episode because the last time we had him on to celebrate the 20th anniversary of a film, we had to make him watch Terminator 3: Rise of the Machines, and I felt that we owed him a good one. So, Anton, this is our palate cleanser. We've had to endure some pretty crappy movies so far this season on Why Wasn't It Better, and I felt we deserved a good one that we could defend. Peter, your thoughts?
Wow. It was heavy. I loved it. I did. And I remember seeing the movie when I was a kid. I thought the movie was amazing 20 years ago. And I didn't know that there was all this criticism behind it until you told me to start like rewatching it be on the podcast, that's when I started seeing like all under the reception in Wikipedia. That's when I started seeing all this controversial stuff. Like to me, I thought the movie was amazing, right? I thought it was the story of a man that wasn't necessarily maybe betrayed by his country, broken, suffering with some of the darkest demons on the human level, becomes a prisoner of war, but also at the same time becomes someone that comes out better on the other side. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was a great movie. And I've read some of the criticism. I don't necessarily agree with it. I just think sometimes we just got to let a movie be a movie.
Anton, what's your experience with The Last Samurai?
I mean, it's an incredible, like, just one. It was a great experience seeing it when I was younger, and having always been, of course, fascinated with Japanese culture. Listeners of the podcast should know that by now. It was just another opportunity to really, when I was younger, see that on the big screen, on the silver screen, and I don't know what I was expecting, but at the same time, I think that we'll talk about it. There were a lot of expectations and perceptions based on what people thought the film was and what the film is. And having seen it when I was younger, I can definitely say like it really is a very unique and poignant film that I think definitely deserves a discussion and a revisit. So I'm excited to, dig in and really talk about that because there's really a lot of layers to peel here.
That's well said. And it's a good point you made about this being hyped because in an era where Tom Cruise is still very much a superstar, he's a different kind of superstar now. This was still at the time when he was doing a variety of roles, which included dramatic roles. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but this is the type of role that he would never do now. I'm not quite sure why that is. We can only speculate, but I'm going to say this now and I'm going to say it again. This made me miss dramatic Tom Cruise. I think he was really good at it.
I know what you mean, Pat. Looking at the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, let's get into the production history of this. The film's plot was inspired by the 1877 Satsuma Rebellion, led by Saigo Takamori and the westernization of Japan by foreign powers. The character of Captain Nathan Algren was influenced by Jules Brunet, a French Imperial Guard officer who fought alongside Enomoto Takeaki in the earlier Boshin War, as well as Ernest Mason Satow and Algernon Mitford, great name, pair of British diplomats during the Meiji Restoration who were involved in the Satsuma Rebellion. And to a lesser extent, it was inspired by a gentleman named Frederick Townsend Ward, an American mercenary who helped westernize the Chinese army. Philip Kearny, a United States and French Imperial Guard soldier notable for his leadership in the American Civil War, who fought against the Tututni tribe in the Rogue River Wars in Oregon, served as additional inspiration. Technically, the film is based on an original screenplay entitled The Last Samurai from a story by writer John Logan. Now, Logan is a name known to this podcast. He is one of the screenwriters, Anton, who worked on Skyfall and Spectre. So take of that what you will. One hit, one miss. Logan's project itself was actually inspired by writer and director Vincent Ward, who was one of the writers on the misfire that was Alien 3. Ward served as an executive producer on this film. He worked on the development of it for nearly 4 years, and after approaching several directors, including Francis Ford Coppola and Peter Weir, until Edward Zwick became interested in the project. And I'd like to talk about Edward Zwick for a moment, because I'm not sure if he is a name the average moviegoer would recognize. He hasn't done anything noteworthy in a while, but if you look at his resume, it's pretty impressive. Do either of you recognize his name?
No, not on my end.
The name, no, but I cheated and I Googled him and it's proceed.
He came to fame as being the showrunner on 30-something, which was a very successful TV drama in the late 1980s. But he got most of his body of work for directing. He directed the following films: Glory, Legends of the Fall, Courage Under Fire, The Siege, Blood Diamond, and one of the Jack Reacher films. And he actually won a Best Picture Academy Award for co-producing Shakespeare in Love, which is the film that famously should have never won Best Picture because Saving Private Ryan should have won. But that's a whole nother discussion. The point is, pretty impressive career from this guy Zwick, right? Like Glory, great movie. Courage Under Fire, really underrated Denzel Washington movie. Blood Diamond's a great movie.
Love and Other Drugs?
And then of course this, right? The guy knows what he's doing. But as far as this, The Last Samurai, the film went into production with, Zwick, and it was shot in actually New Zealand of all places. New Zealand ended up being chosen, apparently, according to the production, due to the fact that the Mount Taranaki region resembles Mount Fuji, and also because there's a lot of forest and farmland in the region. And I'm also going to assume that New Zealand was selected because it was cheaper than Japan. However, some scenes were shot in Kyoto, and there was a total of 13 filming locations in all, and several of the village scenes ended up being shot on the Warner Brothers studio backlot in Burbank. And I have to say, pretty impressive, because that village did not look like a set at all. It looked pretty convincing.
Nope.
Tom Cruise, who of course never phones anything in, he spent almost 2 years in preparation for this movie, including swordplay instruction and Japanese language lessons. He performed all of his own stunts as he usually does. Yeah. Like I said, the guy does not phone anything in.
And shout out to Tom Cruise. He did Top Gun Maverick in the last few years. I thought that was a pretty dramatic and great movie.
Yeah, but he could have done that role in his sleep.
True. It was. You're not wrong. Okay, fair. I concede.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you. He's great in that movie.
But you're right. It wasn't
doesn't do these kinds of movies anymore.
You don't get to see him. Yeah. How do we put it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, fun fact about doing his own stunts. He got thrown off the mechanical horse on one of the scenes that almost resulted in serious injuries for him. So it's one of those things that they always talk about where actors that do their own stunts really put the film at risk. But Tom Cruise is always very insistent.
Yeah, and that's what we like about him, though, right? That's exactly one of the things that adds to his legend at this point, because he is a legend.
Absolutely. We already listed a few films. Tommy Boy has put out quite a few films that are always going to be legendary from our eyes.
Speaking of batting averages, he has one of the highest batting averages of any actor ever. Rarely makes a dud.
Oh, definitely.
As far as the other actors go, this was the first time Ken Watanabe starred in an American-made movie. And it is the first time he spoke English in a movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For the climactic battle scenes, over 500 Japanese extras trained for 10 days at the Clifton Rugby Grounds in New Plymouth, New Zealand. According to Internet Movie Database, this film has a body count of 558.
Let's go.
Yep.
I read a nice article about the visual effects in this movie. There's some really clever use of CGI in here. All of the arrows and throwing stars are digitally animated. Thought that was a cool little bit.
I have some thoughts that I'm saving for the production section of the conversation on the CGI.
I have some thoughts as well.
I don't want to spoil it for the listeners.
We might touch on this during reason one from Why Wasn't It Better, but I just wanted to mention, the director for this film, or just even everyone that worked on this film, put so much care into things like accuracy and respect for the culture, something that may have been overlooked. 500 Japanese extras for the film, right?
Yes.
So that's something that's in particular very just impressive, really respecting the film's origins. Just wanted to point that out.
It's sick you say that, Anton, because I said that to Ashley during the final scene, which I'm sure that people have seen it. When everyone kneels, I was like, wow, they got a lot of Japanese people for this movie. I was like, that's spectacular.
Exactly.
Well, they paid for it. $140 million budget in 2003. It's pretty big. $230 today. They spent the money.
How was it received critically?
Okay. So it has a 66% Rotten Tomato score, which is, it's fine. It did make a ton of money at the box office, like we pointed out, but I wanted to bring this up. I think the audience score is quite revealing. It's 85%. So audiences liked this a considerable amount more than the critics, and this ended up as the 6th highest grossing film of 2003. Gentlemen, let's talk about why this wasn't better. Number one is the white savior trope. I want to begin by asking a question. Is this a white saviior movie?
Absolutely
I don't think
not.
so, man. I
don't either. And that's it for this week's edition of Why Wasn't It Better? Tune in next week. No, all joking aside, the most common criticism of this film is that it falls into the white savior trope, which would, later befall James Cameron's Avatar, and, Dances with Wolves received similar criticism. But I kind of started getting into this when I was explaining why I chose this film. And anyone who tells you this is a white savior movie, I think they either haven't seen it or they completely misunderstood it.
I think that's fair. And I feel like it's the first one.
And one thing, I think we're all in agreement, right? There's a lot of things about like what are the typical tropes for a white savior film, this film doesn't really hit those check boxes. Probably white savior films that more traditionally fit those check boxes, of course, Avatar. That that's probably more I mean, jokes aside.
What about The Blind Side? Isn't that
right? Exactly. That's actually a very like pretty like on the nose example. I think one of the like to expand on just like this concept though, right? I think that, you know, it's fair to say like in the US, race is a very, you know, prickly topic, right? It can be it's very controversial when it's discussed. If it's like definitely not like it's not dining manner conversation.
You don't bring it up
right?
at Thanksgiving, which again, hopefully yours was great.
Right. But and so when you think about that and you think about like people's perceptions of the films that come that are brought to like, you know, from a major studio, there's going to be a lot of questions that come up. So a film like The Last Samurai, of course, when you get that and you see Tom Cruise at the front, of course people are going to make a lot of assumptions.
That's fair, because he was all over the marketing for this. He was on the posters, and like I can understand that, right? Like he's Tom Cruise, he's the star of the movie. There are no other stars in the film. Who else are they going to put on the poster?
I remember reading that, like, I guess people thought he was the last samurai.
Right.
It was definitely like how do you like Katsumoto literally stabbed himself in the middle of a battlefield. Like that's the last samurai, guys. Like it's pretty evident. And they're like, no, it's definitely Tom Cruise. No, it's not.
The portly British man, played by Timothy Spall, he even says it at one point in the film, doesn't he? Like, he's the last samurai.
Timothy Spall. Oh my gosh.
Was he in Harry Potter?
He is in Harry Potter.
Yes.
Peter Pettigrew.
So
Rat
Timothy Spall is like the living embodiment of like a Disney like henchman in like all of his roles.
He could have been Smee in like Peter Pan.
He really could, like he really could have. The closest thing, there was a film, I think it was it was a live action Disney musical. It starred I think it starred like Emily Blunt. We might have to cut this part out just because I don't remember the film off the top of my head. But like he straight up played like a henchman from Disney. I'm like, so this is the role that he was born for.
Was it the Jungle River Cruise?
No, it was Enchanted. My mistake. It was Amy Adams, Patrick Dempsey, James Marsden, and he's in this, and he just plays like a henchman. I'm like, well, this just feels natural.
He's right where he needs.
He should just be credited as portly British man in every movie. I get he has a King Charles type of voice too. Oh dearest mama.
Very, very posh.
Yeah. He's the narrator of this film, right? Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So, you know, just to kind of, you know, go back to, you know, discussions on, you know, white savior or not, and knowing about like the marketing side of it, do we feel like there has to be a lot of either there is or there isn't extra care taken when a film is being directed about a different culture, right? And how often in honest question, how often do we see Hollywood not take care when trying to depict another culture on film?
More often than not.
Right. And so when we think about that, we can probably see why there's a bit of skepticism from folks, maybe even seeing Tom Cruise on the cover, the title, and not even wanting to give it a chance, just assuming this is another attempt by Hollywood to kind of cash in on like some sort of exoticism, right? That really, like, you know, which is kind of typically what typically when you see you know, historically different races on like the silver screen, there's like this expectation of seeing those races, seeing people of those races being a bit more like in more racial stereotype roles, right? So if it's a Chinese guy, he's gonna do kung fu in the scene. If he's a Japanese guy, he might be in a Yakuza or a samurai. So historically, we've seen that typically, right?
Yes.
But now considering that, how respectful would you say did this film actually take when actually writing the story and just like depicting like the Japanese culture?
Well, okay. I want to preface my answer by saying I am in no way an expert on Japanese culture.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal that.
I won't
that
pretend
preface as well.
Yeah. I won't pretend to be otherwise. based on what I read about the feedback and the reception that this film received in Japan, I'd say it was very respectful of Japanese culture.
I agree.
Yep.
The critical reception in Japan was generally positive. It actually made more money in Japan than it did in the States at the box
I
office.
remember looking at that.
And this really stood out to me during the research. 20 years on, this is still one of the 25 highest grossing films of all time in Japan. I think that's quite telling.
That's amazing. I mean, and I totally agree. Like, you can even just look at that being like a strong indicator, right? Like, you don't get strong reception from the origin, from the country of origin that was depicting.
People don't spend money if it sucks.
Such a strong reception. Absolutely.
I have a quote here. Tomomi Katsuda of the Mainichi Shinbun, which is a newspaper, I believe. He thought that this movie was, quote, a vast improvement over previous American attempts to portray Japan, end quote. And he noted that producer and director Edward Zwick, quote, had researched Japanese history, cast well-known Japanese actors, and consulted dialogue coaches to make sure he didn't confuse the casual and formal categories of Japanese speech, end quote. Now, I do want to include this critic. He also found fault with the movie's idealistic, quote, storybook portrayal of the samurai, saying, our image of samurai is that they were more corrupt, end quote. And as such, he said the noble samurai leader Katsumoto set his teeth on edge. So, not completely praiseworthy.
Right.
And based on what I know just from my own research, the samurai do have a more checkered legacy in Japanese culture than this film perhaps would suggest.
So, interesting. And for any PS5 players out there, I played this game called Ghosts of Tsushima.
Tsushima, yeah.
Fantastic game. Unbelievable, and I think it tells the story of like what samurai are supposed to be, because you do see aspects of that. Like, I think the best way to put it is honor among thieves, right? That's I guess what the samurai were portrayed. Again, I'm using a game as a reference point, so I have no idea if this is factually true, but that was something that was made 3 years ago, right? So considering that it came 17 years after and it portrayed the samurai, and even when you're watching the movie, it makes you want to kind of play the game again. So it felt pretty accurate from what I know, comparing two things that I'm not an expert in.
Yeah, I mean, I totally like agree in the aspect of just there's a bit of inaccuracies when looking like at this film. But Pat, I was talking about this with you earlier. There's always a bit of romanticism when there's a film adaptation, right? And the purpose is to tell a story. So I don't think necessarily like you have to get it 100% right. It's like trying to tell the story of like a beat cop and like his precinct and always trying to do the right thing and everyone on the cop is a good cop. That's a romanticized story, right? In the same way that when you think about this film, the point was to tell a story with a setting and be as respectful as possible. And then there's flexibility, right, for directors and writers to find the right balance of where you kind of stretch it a bit more to fit the purpose of the story.
Yeah, for sure. The bottom line is, if you go to Hollywood expecting 100% historical accuracy for this type of film, you're going to be disappointed every time. That's just not realistic. That's not how movies work.
Like, you're not going to invest. Like, if you want to see something that's going to be historically accurate, watch National Geographic. Don't watch a movie called The Last Samurai.
Exactly.
Right. No.
Tom Cruise.
At the same time, like, you don't want a bunch of crap. And when you read stuff like this film getting a lot of the costumes right and the dialogue right, like, that's always great. Those are great things. And you want it to be as accurate as they can be, right? But to your point, Anton, they have to tell a story first.
Yeah.
And absolutely. If anything, Nathan Algren he's not a white savior at all. If anything, this is like an anti-white savior type of character. If the samurai are the ones who save him.
Yeah.
Before he decides to join their cause, he's a completely broken man, depressed, borderline suicidal, alcoholic. He completely hates himself for what he did to participate, in the slaughter of the Native Americans. Katsumoto provides him with a second chance to redeem himself. I love Algren's return in the end. Like, he finally gets, some, quote, like, well-deserved small measure of peace.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, when I think about Algren's character, it really is just a good stand-in for the audience themselves to put themselves in his shoes and just be immersed in the culture. And there's a lot that he goes through that is very like that can be relatable in terms of like feelings of guilt, the story of redemption. A lot of folks can sympathize and like, really buy into that. But I think I still, it always goes back to this very messy, relationship in Hollywood and in general, like the culture in the US about like race relations, and just like a lot of folks look at films and wanting to avoid like, how do you avoid common stereotypes or negative stereotypes? And how do you also avoid things like cultural appropriation, or like, what does that even really mean? Right. And as that continues to evolve. But I think, Pat, we've talked about this. Ken Watanabe actually had some pretty positive things to say about what this film really means for Asians in Hollywood.
Yeah, please share it.
It was a 2022 interview with The Guardian, and Ken Watanabe stated that he didn't think of The Last Samurai as a white savior narrative, and that was a turning point for Asian representation in Hollywood. Watanabe also stated, before The Last Samurai, there is a stereotype of Asian people with glasses, buck teeth, and a camera. It was stupid, but before The Last Samurai came out, Hollywood tried to be more authentic when it came to Asian stories. And I wholeheartedly agree.
You're qualified to speak to this, Anton.
I was gonna say, listeners may not know I am Asian, but of course, I'm not a mouthpiece for all Asian people out there. I can only speak for myself. With that, I love to see how that's evolved over time. What is an Asian actor's role, or what an Asian actor's role can be, because it truly has evolved. And I do think that this film in particular could be seen as like a very strong turning point for that.
Well said. I was wondering about, would this movie be made now?
No way.
Maybe.
No way.
You never know.
Not in today's world, man.
It's hard. No, it's too hard. I mean, we already talked about how race is a sticky subject. How much worse do you think it's gotten since 2003?
Like, if you made this movie now, it's no. I don't think you can do it. Even though I think it was a fantastic movie.
Twitter wasn't around in 2003 to tell Japanese they're not supposed to like it.
I believe it's called X now and worth approximately half the value.
It's so difficult for me because, like, I think one of the common gripes today is if someone is not of specific ethnic origin, it's not right to like direct or tell or write or tell that story, right? So to look at Edward Zwick telling like a story about the Japanese people and Japanese culture, I think today that would be like, that's not going to fly.
Downey Jr. and Tropic Thunder. Good luck, man. Good luck trying to remake that one today.
Yeah. But I mean, looking at the film, I'm like, I
thought it was too.
Job.
I mean, like, it's, you see this broken man, you watch him get submerged, and he was there for, I think, a year and a half, right?
Right.
Was it longer or shorter?
No, it was a whole winter.
So in 7 months, he was able to go from alcohol withdrawals and being what he feels is betrayed in his country to going through finding peace, which I think this is something that most people can never find today, right? And submerging himself in a different culture and looking at a different way of life. And he was able to beat PTSD, alcoholism, and decide that he wanted to fight for something. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that. Those little scenes where you see him like connecting with this kid, right? And they barely speak the same language. I thought it was really well done. I don't see that as a racist thing. I see it as like, wow, these are two cultures coming together, and Tom Cruise is the perfect guy to do this.
Well, at least we can kind of look back and see, like, there's consensus here. They did a good job. And even looking in Japan and the amount of money made in the box office, we touched on it before, Pat. How much was made in Japan versus in the US?
It made $111 million at the American box office, and it made $132 million in Japan. Pretty noteworthy.
And then still, as you mentioned, 20 years later, one of the 25 highest grossing films ever in Japan. So there really is such strong, I think, cultural significance to this film that deserves a revisit for a lot of watchers.
Shout out to.
Yes, if the listeners haven't figured it out by now, we are highly encouraging anyone who hasn't seen this to check this out.
I think that's fair. Shout out to Taka. I think she doesn't get enough credit for, to me, this was a story of Japanese culture cherishes an honorable death, right? Or at least what we can see and what we're led to believe at this point. And you watch this lady accept a stranger in her home who killed her husband in a way that she's okay. And you're watching her overcome grief. You're watching her son overcome grief. Let alone they're portraying it as a movie, right? You're watching this and you're watching him serve as kind of a pillar to help her overcome that grief. I don't think that gets enough credit because, like, let's call it what it is. Her husband went to battle. Her husband died. She accepts that. She understands it's honorable, but at the same time, there's that like beautiful scene where he just says, "I'm sorry," and she goes, "I think I accept your apology," and I think this is just game changing, right? And then it just sets it up for for the final battle, and it's just all hell breaks loose. It's chaos, but like I thought that was beautiful of her saying like, "Come take this armor," and like you're ready, which I can also see how that kind of led to the confusion about the Last Samurai.
And it's a payoff, right? Because their relationship develops through the whole film.
Yes.
It doesn't just come out of nowhere. It's earned.
You feel it too.
Absolutely.
Well done. I don't think she gets enough credit for that because I think, and maybe I'm reading too deeply into it, but that's kind of what I felt when I was watching it.
No, I agree with you. I haven't seen her in anything else. Her name's Koyuki, but she's very subtle in this movie, but she's very good. I have in my notes here, her romance with Cruz doesn't feel forced. She has a real arc. First, she despises him. She slowly comes to respect him. She gradually develops feeling from him. It's minimal telling and just the right amount of showing.
Spot on.
Also, how comfy does her house look? That looks like an amazing house to live in. The whole village.
I was going to say the whole aesthetic just looks like
wonderful.
Pretty
It's even crazier.
Everything's cherry and cedar and sliding paper doors, and it just if I ever win the lottery, I want an entire section of my house to look like that.
Huh.
Maybe that's corny, but I don't care.
Win the lottery.
Well, if you're ever curious, I was going to say, if you're ever curious, just go to Larry Ellison's house. It's exactly like this village.
Oh, okay.
Well, more power to him.
Up right now.
That's it for the white savior trope. Honestly, we don't have any other things to discuss about this movie. Why wasn't it better? Other than we just want to talk about our thoughts on the production.
Yep, absolutely.
I mentioned this before, how this movie made me really miss dramatic Tom Cruise. I think apart from A Few Good Men and Born on the 4th of July, this is his finest dramatic performance. I think he's outstanding in this film. Dramatic performance. He's given better action performances, possibly. I think that's underrated here, too. He is a total badass in this movie.
Do you count Minority Report as action?
Yes.
Okay. Then
yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
This is his best dramatic performance.
He's tortured. He's beaten down, completely giving up. He would never do this kind of acting now, and it's a real shame.
Yeah,
I have here...
Go ahead, Pat. Sorry.
Since this film, he's only done one real other movie, which was the following year, Collateral. It's the last time he made a serious attempt at drama. Ever since this film,
Jamie Foxx.
He's done action comedy stuff. He can do that in his sleep, like we mentioned. Now, some of it's great. Don't get me wrong. I like all that stuff. But he can sleepwalk through Mission Impossible.
And I'll pay for it every time. Agreed. He doesn't really have... They really just, honestly, just need his face.
Say what you want about his personal life. He chooses to make a lot of movies that I just gravitate towards. Some actors are really good, but they appear in movies that aren't appealing to me. Anton, our boy Michael Glassbender, he's an example of this. He's in a lot of movies that I'm just not a fan of. Some of them I am, but, Cruise is one of those few people where I just like a lot of the movies that he happens to be involved in.
Oh, very well said, my friend. I mean, like you said, very high batting average, right?
Yeah. And, all the sword play that he did for 2 years leading up to this, it pays off because he looks like he really knows how to handle a sword. And this is why audiences keep going back to his films, right? He does not phone anything in. He gives everything 100%. He even manages to sell some melodrama here, like the part where he's in withdrawal and he's like yelling, "Sake!" That might be ridiculous with a lesser actor, but he manages to pull it off.
You can tell there was a dude in pain.
By the way, I did a little math research. So, his character is getting paid $500 a month to do this job.
Right.
That is about $15,000 a month today. So when Bagley gives him the envelope with the back pay, it's something like $100,000. Not too bad.
That's not bad at all.
No, $15,000 a month, not bad pay. All right, what do we think of Ken Watanabe in this film?
He's great. Oh my gosh, just legend.
He really should have won Best Supporting Actor. He was nominated for it. Tim Robbins, you can go screw. Watanabe is astonishingly good. He's emotional without ever going over the top. He brings a tremendous amount of sympathy to his cause. Even if you think about it, he's basically a warlord who just wants to keep warlording, and he somehow manages to convey sympathy. He doesn't waste any line. Everything he says or does, it's pivotal to the overall story. He does the absolute most with his screen time. His scenes with Cruise, they're some of my favorite acting scenes. And I really wish I could end text message conversations with "This was a good conversation." Maybe I will. And Pete, you mentioned Koyuki earlier. She's great.
I think I got to give, first of all, Ken Watanabe. What a legend, right? Fantastic in all the Godzillas. Big shout out to Inception. Great career. And fake Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins.
Fake Ra's al Ghul.
So big shout out to you. Another one of my favorite actors, Yujiro. I think the guy's name is Hiroyuki Sanada.
Yeah.
Guy was in John Wick 4.
Total badass.
He was
Bullet
Scorpion.
Train, right? He was Scorpion in the new Mortal Kombat. Spectacular. And he was also in The Ring.
Oh.
Yeah. And one of the movies that I really enjoyed that I don't think that gets enough attention, Life with Jake Gyllenhaal. He was also in that. He was one of the scientists in there.
Okay. Yeah, he's been around.
Yeah.
And then the obligatory white bad guy, Tony G.
Oh man,
Tony G.
So good at being a jerk.
Yeah.
He's so easy to hate. I mean it in the best way. And Anton, his character really should have realized that Japanese people find large arm movements threatening.
Yeah, if only they had such an expert as
an expert consultant.
Keep your hands at your sides at all times. I love the dialogue from this film as well, where Katsumoto asks Algren, "Do you believe a man can change his destiny?" And he says, "I think a man does what he can until his destiny is revealed."
Yes, loved it. And I was like, savage. And then little prequel, right? Because I don't think 300 was out yet. Then they reference the Battle of Thermopylae. Come on.
They do.
Is it happening in the same universe? No one knows.
As 300.
I was like, wait, what?
Kidding. No, but I thought that was cool. Like seeing it years later, and I was like, wow, 300 is one of my favorite movies. And I was like, this is it, right? Like this is literally Custer's last stand right here.
I have not seen 300 in a long time.
So I'm trying to convince my wife to watch it, and I've committed the lie of saying that romantic comedies don't age well, but 90s action movies age really well, so we have to watch them. She didn't buy it though.
I feel like that's the type of movie where you either really like it or you despise it.
Yes. And I have a feeling it's going to be, how do I say this, a predominantly male positive film, female negative film. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
we
fair.
Probably ate it. And like, there's not really much of a story. Let's just call it what it is, man. It's an ass-kicking movie with Gerard Butler.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's fair. Xerxes.
Yeah. And then they tried to make the second one, which didn't go well.
Now you see how kind I can be and how generous.
Had the same voice modification from The Dark Knight.
You have battled my armies. Oh, James, Mommy was very bad. Same voice, Anton.
Same voice and
different
visuals in my head.
To the highest bidder. All right, I'm done. The perfect blossom is a rare thing. You can spend your whole life looking for one. It would not be a wasted life. I like that one too, for whatever reason.
I thought that was good, but also kind of circular.
Yeah,
I was trying to find definition to it. Maybe I'm just not like as philosophical for that one, but I was like the way I interpret that is I feel like it would be a wasted life because you're chasing and never living.
I find myself inclined to agree with Katsumoto.
I think that's reasonable. Yeah.
And I agree with you. I don't quite know what it means, but I'm into it.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. All right, fair. Cut this out of the podcast then.
There is life in every breath. And no, I'm leaving that in, Pete.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
But the production itself, one of the most visually stunning films of its era.
Yeah.
It looks incredible.
I made a note on here. So there was a shot where I think it was right after Tom Cruise got captured. There's a shot of all the samurai like marching back. They expand and you see this huge environment and you see like the CGI, obviously it's 2003, so it has to be framed within context, but it looks awesome, right? Because it really does look real. And at no point during the movie, even when they're trying to create this this grand environment of something like, I don't know what the Japanese presidential building is called, but where the emperor is, it's supposed to be this grand building, right?
Oh, the Imperial Palace?
Yes, that's what I was looking for. When you walk in there and the way they shoot it, it just feels like you're in such a big room, which is even crazier because when you mentioned earlier that it was just some of these places were just a set. Shout out to the cinematographers. Like they at no point did you ever feel like you were in a small compressed room. It was even when you were on top of the mountains in Japan, when you were inside, the shots would just be very landscape-esque, I guess, is how they made it It just felt bigger. It felt a lot bigger, and it's crazier. It feels even more crazy to learn that most of it was on a set.
Well, I'm glad you brought the cinematographer up because he is a 2-time Oscar winner. His name is John Toll. How on earth he wasn't nominated for an Oscar for this film, I don't know. Nearly every frame in this movie looks like a painting. You nailed it, Pete. Like all the stuff in the mountains, it looks like it's from a commercial. It's so well filmed.
It's really, really well filmed, man. And
it's
it's 2003.
This will get you. Not a coincidence. He is the same cinematographer that shot Braveheart.
Yeah, okay. That makes perfect sense. You can see it. You can absolutely see it. And it was great, man. I think it held up well.
The other Oscar robbery. How the hell was Hans Zimmer's score not nominated?
Right. No, I completely agree. This was go ahead, Pete.
When you said Tim Robbins, did Ken Watanabe lose to Tim Robbins for Shawshank Redemption?
No, it was for Mystic River.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense because it's like, okay.
Yeah, a film that nobody remembers, Mystic River.
Yes.
Nope.
It was good, though.
I like that movie.
Yeah, it was good.
I'm not watching it 20 years later.
No, it's definitely a one-and-done type movie.
Is that my daughter in there? I don't want to hate on Sean Penn, but he's just an overacting masterclass in that movie.
There was another great actor that was robbed that year at the Academy Awards.
Johnny Depp.
Yes, exactly. Nailed it.
Should have won for Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, the first one, Curse of the Black Pearl.
Yeah, he got an Oscar nomination for that.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, Hans Zimmer, back to him. This is just...
Who did he lose to?
He didn't even get nominated.
Not even nominated, which is insane.
Insane.
I'll
bring up the score right now.
Seems rigged.
This is what was nominated. So, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King won. Howard Shore. Okay, fine. Great music, legendary music. I'm not arguing with that.
Yeah, fair.
But this is what else was nominated. Danny Elfman for Big Fish. Meh, okay, fine.
It's okay.
That was like a cult movie. Everyone loved that. I was like, eh.
Gabriel Yared for Cold Mountain. No way that should have been nominated over this.
What?
Thomas Newman for Finding Nemo. Okay, that's great music.
It's fair. Yeah.
James Horner for House of Sand and Fog. I'm saying that shouldn't have been nominated either. James Horner has done way better scores that weren't nominated. In a world of Hans Zimmer's work, this is probably one of my 5 favorite scores that he's done. It is absolutely gorgeous. I listen to film scores fairly frequently, and this is one I return to a lot. I could listen to this score all day. It is breathtaking music.
Yeah, it is good, man. It's very good. Man, that's kind of I feel bummed out for him, man.
Right.
He definitely got robbed. He definitely pissed someone off that year.
It's really weird sometimes with the Oscars, like what people get nominated for and what they don't.
And I mean, let's be fair. We've talked about this before on the podcast. We don't consider the Oscars the end all be all of defining what's greatness for a film. But it does hurt to see a film or like individuals not get recognized because
it's kind of messed up.
Yeah, it is messed up. But at the same time, we also know that the Academy Awards is rigged. The house is rigged. This is all just a political. Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get it right, but sometimes they don't. Like this movie was nominated for
most of the time they get it wrong.
Yeah, it's some of them just don't age well. Like this lost all the technical nominations it got to Lord of the Rings. It got nominated for sound, art direction, costume design. Lord of the Rings won all of them. Like, okay, fair. I won't argue that. But the score thing, for him not to get nominated and for Watanabe not to win Best Supporting Actor, I don't know.
It deserved it. We agree it deserved more.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, not to talk about just like political and corrupt, but long-standing Hollywood, just I guess, ally Clint Eastwood directing Mystic River, who also co-produced it with a lot of big names also attached to the film. Big studio piece. How do you not get that film the awards that it should get, which also gives it enough of the prestige and deservedness for just adding to the accolades for the studio, for Warner Brothers, and then in the eyes of the in the eyes of the Academy, like it's a good handshake, right?
Yeah. What do we think of the action scenes in The Last Samurai?
So, as a little interesting fact for me, growing up, I used to spend a lot of time with my grandma. My grandma used to love Bruce Lee, like love kung fu movies, and I watched hours upon hours of kung fu. I've seen good scenes, I've seen bad scenes, I've seen like mediocre scenes, and I've seen like Mortal Kombat level scenes. The action was awesome. I think you really feel like let's call it what it is, and it kind of is. It invokes the emotion that one side is fighting with firearms and one side is fighting with swords, but you really feel that. And I think every time that sword impacts another sword and you see them. Like when you have to kill someone with a sword in a movie, I think it's like you feel it more. I think that being able to choreograph that and make the audience convinced and be like, you're building tension the entire scene. You don't know what's going to happen. Tom Cruise is killing all of these people. Katsumoto's killing all these people. Spears flying. Bagley's dead, which by the way just kind of died, which is sad.
All
of that goes into it. No, it was definitely sad, but like I figured, like I thought he was gonna die in like a cooler way, like the big villain, but he just got
liked it.
He got like a Knight's Tale.
No.
He just speared
here's
him.
why I liked it. A lesser movie would have given Algren and Bagley some cornball, stereotypical battle to the death, and it's like, no, that doesn't happen here. Algren just throws a sword through his chest, done and dusted.
All right, I guess I can kind of see some solace in that. All right, that's fair. Yeah, he was kind of a dick too.
Yeah, he had that coming, dude. He shot all those unarmed Native Americans. Like, yeah, I loved all the action in here. It's so well done. The opening battle in the forest, they really make it believable, because when the first time you see it, I remember when I first saw it in the theater, I was like, how are they gonna beat these guys with guns? And they actually make it like believable. Like the soldiers aren't well trained, they panic, they don't stick to their firing lines.
It's guerrilla warfare. They know the terrain. Like they make it very believable. And then I think this is part of it as well, is like with every frame is a painting in the same way during the action as well. Very well shot. You do feel a lot of the impact. It captures the mastery of the sword fighting very well.
Edward Zwick, he does a great job of staging this like big set piece action. You have a really good, proper sense of spatial geography. He does an excellent job with the camera of establishing the scale of the battlefield, where both sides are. You're never really confused about who's who. He nails all that stuff. My favorite action sequence in the whole film is the ninja attack on the village.
Yeah, that was sick.
It was so cool the way Algren becomes fully loyal to the group. Because remember, up until that point, they're starting to open up to him, but they still don't know if they can trust him.
Yeah, that's where he earns the trust, dude.
Exactly. He saves Taka and the kids. The kid is willing to risk his life for Algren. And then at the end, the way Katsumoto looks at him and he realizes who Algren has become.
Yes.
So satisfying.
Yeah.
So, side note, of all the samurai, do we have any particular favorite armor from the film? Talking about just like the great costuming. Who had an armor that really stuck out to you?
Ujio.
Yeah.
Dude,
Ujio's a badass, dude.
Yes, oh my gosh, so cool.
His mask, the whole deal. It's just it's phenomenal.
I was watching it with Ashley. There's a scene where like Ujio and Tom Cruise are just going at it, and then he turns around and remember the two Asian guys on the side are betting. They're like 5 moves.
It's so great.
Yes.
And then they both go draw, and he just nods at him, and I was like, "Fuck that!" Oh, can I say that? I can't say that. Can I?
Yeah, you can say that. It's fine.
Okay. I was so pumped, dude. I was like, "Yeah, let's go."
But that's the thing. Everything that we're highlighting here, right, is all about the writing and the storytelling. Every character in this film has a real arc, and that's what makes this movie so great, in my opinion. The action scenes, they're wonderful, but they're just a bonus because of how well told this story was for me.
Yeah, I think it's a story with action. It's a historical epic with great fight scenes. It's not an action movie with a story.
This film reminds me of a Roger Ebert quote that I'm particularly fond of. He was talking about another movie, but this quote always stuck with me, and I think it applies here perfectly. Quote, "It's a reminder of a time when stunts and special effects were integrated into stories rather than the other way around." End quote.
Yep, absolutely. I think he sums it up as saying they don't make movies like they used to. When we watch a movie, it's a blank slate that a bunch of people get together and they say, let's create this story and we're going to take the viewer on it, right? And that ability to be able to create a world and carry someone through that world, it's just awesome, right? And now it is, I understand we're in the age of everything needs to be a computer, and I totally get that. But like, do you think we're past that golden age of where you see performances like this and it becomes something that we remember for years? Or do you think everything's just more of like a short, quick action movie and then we forget about it?
I think we're mostly past it, but that doesn't mean it can't still happen.
Is that because Disney's losing money on Marvel movies now?
Maybe. It's hard to say, right? Like, we're looking at this with the benefit of 20 years of hindsight. Just looking back at the 2003 films, we've covered a couple of them. Peter, you were on for Terminator 3. There was bad movies then too.
Yeah, true. Maybe this is just recency bias then.
It's. I don't know if there's a great answer for that. At least not for me. It's hard to say. I want to talk about the violence real quick.
Yes.
Remember on the Hannibal episode, we talked about how violence can go too far?
Right.
This film does it perfectly for me. This is a very, very violent movie, but it never crosses the line. They don't shy away from showing bloodshed, but it's all part of telling the story. It's done as tastefully as possible. They could show every decapitation, but they don't.
Yes.
Edward Zwick, he knows when to show the blood and he knows when to hold back.
Yep. And I think a scene that really captured that for me was during the seppuku scene.
Yes.
Where that's a very brutal act.
Oh, in the forest?
Right. In the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
And you see, I think like for the audience, this is like really like starting to dive into the deep side of the pool when it comes to learning about like the way of the samurai.
Yeah, honor and culture.
But it's captured very beautifully and also not too gratuitously.
Yeah, the camera, I think the camera pans by a tree and it like it shows the exact moment of the decapitation so you don't actually see it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Algren, he misunderstands it and he like later says something to it. He's like, "Do you always decapitate unarmed enemies?" And he's like, "No, you don't understand. Like, I was honored to do that."
Correct.
Man, Edward Zwick, underrated director, I think. He did such a good job with this.
Absolutely.
I thought the lengthy runtime was justified. I thought it was really well paced. It's not an action movie. The slower dialogue-driven scenes are equally compelling to the action for me. And again, that's what makes this movie so great for me.
And I don't know, was it rated R? Because I remember watching the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah.
Like where it was slow, right? And to the point about the violence, right? Where blood would be squirting everywhere, medics running with tourniquets, bombs, explosions, crazy. But for the first part of the movie, it's building this story. It kind of feels like like an HBO series, which is fantastic. Like, you know, that first episode where it's all just story. That's what the first half of the movie felt like, where it's that slow build up, and then it just went nuts.
Yeah, except for the battle in the forest. But yes.
Yeah, that didn't go well.
No, especially not for Billy Connolly.
Yeah, I feel bad. His role was a little bit short lived.
Yeah, he didn't last long. I thought the ending was so satisfying, where he visits the Emperor and he gives him the sword, and he says, "I will tell you how he lived." Goosebumps.
Love it. I also love, shout out to the Emperor. Right, the Emperor doesn't get enough credit for like growing a backbone. I don't know if years later, like being able to stand up. I'm a big like against the man kind of guy. So him standing up against the council, who's wearing like the American suit, is like
Omora
with his like chin beard. That was kind of weird. That was the
with
interpretation.
his cigars and his Western clothing.
It fit well, right? He was trying to adopt that like J.P. Morgan, that Rockefeller like American culture, right? And like I get it, I see it, but I was like, this is ridiculous. And then meanwhile, I feel bad like rooting for Japan to be able to stay not modernized and like loyal to the samurai, but at the same time, it's like, good for you, Emperor. You've done it, right? You've made him proud. You've made this choice. Now let's get your country back on the right here.
Gentlemen, anything to add before we rate this? Final thoughts.
Just wanting to just emphasize again, like, folks, like, if there are perceptions of this film being a white savior film and that's why you've avoided seeing it all this time, go watch it, because that is not the film. And that is, the marketing did not do it justice. Just go in with the, like, we've hyped it up a lot, but I really would say go in with no expectations and see what happens.
All right, Anton, you're gonna go last when we rate this.
Damn.
Okay.
Relegated.
Anton knows why. Peter, as you're the guest, would you like to go before me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm going to touch on everything. So the white savior concept, it really didn't fly for me. Like I didn't buy that thing. I understand there's movies out there that are made that way, but like this is a piece of art. I think we should let it be a piece of art and let's look at it that way. To me, I think watching, I'm a big like underdog kind of guy. So watching a story like this, I think is awesome, right? And I think there's interpretation, what I think a movie means years later, and there's intention. And I think when they set out to do this movie, they were well intentioned, and I think it came out well, right? I think it shows the story of a broken man that was suffering through PTSD and alcoholism and embraces a different culture and comes out a better person on the other side. And I love that story of watching that growth. Alongside that, we got some cool decapitations, A lot of cool samurai stuff, lots of guns, and then the Gatling gun fatality, which I think was kind of messed up. I also have a problem, but also not a problem, because as soon as everyone just got lit up, Tom Cruise didn't really get shot, did he?
Good point.
Right, but I understand, right? If it's written into the contract, he's not going to get lit up by a Gatling gun. I get that. But anyway, it still showed this story, right, of a man standing against what he thought he stood for, and that country kind of betrayed him, is what he felt, and he stood for something else. And watching something like that, I thought was awesome. I think the way it ended was a mic drop. I thought it was great. I loved it. I think if people think it's something that it's not, you're missing out, and I think you should just go see it and suck it up. And then I have to give it a letter grade, right?
You do.
Do we do pluses and minuses here?
We do that.
We do.
I got to go A+, man. I think it's one of my favorite movies. I think it's well done. I think seeing it now as an adult, I think it's awesome, right? Last time I saw this movie, I was 13. I'm 33 now. Shout out to me. Recently 33 last week. It just hits differently. I think it's well done, because I remember.
Happy birthday, Pete.
Thank you. But I remember seeing it as a kid, right? And you see all these things and you see it differently as a kid, but now that you're an adult, you see what they really intended to do. And putting that in the context of 2003, like, movies like these give me hope. A+, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably no surprise at this point. I love this movie. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's some of the best work Tom Cruise has ever done. It's by far his most underrated, underappreciated performance. The other star in this, Ken Watanabe, is equally brilliant. His performance here is one of my all-time favorites in any film. I think this is a beautifully told, beautifully made, beautifully acted movie. It's long, but I don't mind. I like the pacing. I love the supporting cast. I love the dynamic between the two main characters. The heart of that story, they absolutely nail. It's beautiful to look at. Hans Zimmer's score is mesmerizing. I completely reject all of the complaints about the plot. The white savior thing, it's not one of those movies. There's many movies that fall into that trope, but this is not one of them. I found the story extremely compelling. I think I forgot to mention this earlier. This is one of the few films we've covered where I couldn't really identify any plot holes. It's a pretty straightforward, simple plot, but I have no problem with that because it's just so well told. The action scenes are breathtaking, even 20 years later. For me, it's in the same league as Braveheart and Gladiator. Maybe not quite on that level, but it's certainly in the same ballpark. If you haven't seen it, give it a watch. Pete, like you, this is one of my favorite films. I was originally going to give this an A, but just on the basis of our discussion, A+.
Yeah.
A+. Very strong and resounding favorable reviews from Pete and Pat. All right, it's my turn. Okay, so, first off, I'm just so glad I was able to watch this film again after so long. I mean, last time I saw it was actually not too long ago, but now looking at it with a critical lens, it's just extra fun. It was definitely interesting to see the film, released in 2003, have to navigate perceptions of, cultural appropriation, have to navigate, criticisms of, racial insensitivity. And with that, I think a lot of that is, of course, undue criticism. And a film like that is very brave. And I feel like Western perspective today, we've talked about it, a film like this can't really be made today, which is a shame, because when you do have a lot of care put into, looking into the culture, while maybe a bit romanticized, it's not even just the culture itself, but the commitment to even hiring 500 Japanese extras for the film to be as accurate and respectful as possible. It's not like a film like this is getting made today. And so with that, I think there's a lot of respect I have for the film. Again, speaking for myself, not speaking for all Asian people out there, I do think it's great to see a film like this start to open the doors. And from my perspective, really show that this is not Asian people can be in roles that really take them out of what is not just the perpetual foreigner, but as really deep and nuanced roles for individuals and characters with strong development. And overall, just a really great film. With that said, I followed an A-.
I respect it, man. Still an A.
I accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anton, that was well said.
I think so.
Thank you.
So this is
to it too.
This is by far the best received movie that we've talked about so far.
This and Death Note.
Oh yeah, who could forget? Yeah, that's it for The Last Samurai. Peter, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Yes.
Thank you, Pete.
Question. that I just found in his IMDb. Do you think the performance was worth $25 million plus a percentage of the profits?
Definitely.
That's what your boy got paid. Good job, Tommy.
That's how he does it. Well deserved.
Yeah.
Anton, I have a feeling that next week's film is going to be one that is not so highly praised.
Yes, because folks, we are going into the depths and revisiting a world that I may have teased earlier today.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
We are
Avatar, The Way
Yes,
of
we
Water,
are-
the 1 year anniversary, Peter.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
fun because we actually, the last episode was the oldest episode that we'd talked about on the podcast.
That's right.
And then now I think this is probably the most recent film that we're talking about, not counting like the week of episodes, right?
Right. This will be the most recent anniversary episode that we're covering
Exactly.
for sure.
Yes, well put.
Yeah. So Avatar Way of Water came out. By the time you hear that episode, it will have been 1 year old. So that's why we're going to cover it. And that is what you can expect to hear next week. And after that, we'll be getting into some Christmas movies. And that's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, well, I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. Pete, thank you again for being on the episode. It's always a pleasure having you.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.